1986. As the decade reached its second half, the 80s were in their pomp.
I've got the brains, you've got the looks. Let's make lots of money.
All I remember about 1986 was everything around us just seemed to be sort of fake plastic pop.
We're the only ones who haven't got our suit sleeves rolled up with the keyboards like that.
The new pop of the early 80s collided with the money-driven counter-revolution and lost.
That was the era of the yuppie, there's no question, and filofax and your mobile phones.
Out went Feed the World. In 86, we wanted to fleece it. The new kids on the block knew exactly how to get a hit.
We were definitely targeting the gay male audience, because that's what I knew.
And the rest was a kaleidoscope of cover versions, TV tie-ins, slick marketing, and a never-ending stream of novelty. All brought to our TVs by Top of the Pops.
It's like, wow, Top of the Pops. This is it, we've made it.
Years ago, November '82 was my first Top of the Pops. It was also the first Top of the Pops for two guys who went on to immense success. Tonight is their last Top of the Pops as Wham, with The Edge of Heaven at number 1, George Michael and Andrew
Ridgely. Pop, as we knew it, underwent a seismic shift in 1986. Wham gave their final farewell at Wembley before George stepped up to superstardom.
A huge thank you to everyone, not only today, but for the last 4 years.
Wham went out on a high, but other stars of the early 80s vintage were now no longer rebellious youths so much as, well, grown-ups.
1986 is the end for that generation of British band. Wham are splitting up, George is going solo. Spandau Ballet are still ploughing their furrow, but there's not fun anymore. Duran Duran, they've lost a member, and they're making records with Nile Rodgers, because that's what you do when you run out of ideas in the 80s. All these bands are done because pop bands shouldn't really last a long time.
Even the British band with more top 20 hits than any other called time on their career.
A straw-headed woman and a barrel-chested man. Full of posies with a hand brim full of sand.
Madness were always great, but the fact that they choose to do the end on Top of the Pops, there seems a certain poetry about that.
I hear the ghost train rumbling along the track.
Top of the Pops was the only programme that would have us on.
Yeah.
You know, like, been banned from Tiz was.
Yeah. A band from Terry Wiseman.
Yeah, we can't really talk about it.
Madness had announced that they were splitting, but the fans couldn't quite believe that the Nutty Boys would really go their separate ways.
We weren't the flavour of the month anymore. It was like we'd always said, if we, the moment we stop enjoying this,
I was enjoying it.
Away. We grew up, didn't we? Did we grow up?
It's black and white.
Bit sad,
yeah, no, it was a sad. It was. You could feel it inside. This is it. I was totally lost.
And Mark and I had on our guitars at that end.
I think I started up a little landscape gardening firm after that.
The decline of the British pop royalty that Top of the Pops had enjoyed for half a decade posed a problem for head honcho Michael Hurl.
Can you guys come in now?
With the old guard gone, how to keep the fans tuning in?
It's a very surprising show, I think, this week.
It was vital to keep the show's format looking fresh.
So a new look Top of the Pops. One of the changes is that we're going to have a look at the charts right now. Over this video from Tavares, Heaven Must Be Missing an Angel.
You know, Michael was constantly trying to find ways of getting more music into 30 minutes.
Sorry, Tavares, this is where we have a look at the new Top 40. A new entry at number 40 for Susie and the Banshees and Candyman.
Now that doesn't work because you've got the track and the presenter trying to do the rundown, and they're actually clashing.
Well, I'm going to keep my eyes firmly on the man, Mick, but also reveal to you this week's Top 40. And a chart entry at number 40 this week, it's Viola Wills.
They're competing with each other. You don't hear the track properly, and the DJs find it hard to battle with it.
So Atlantic Star at 37 with Secret Lovers, at 36 it's Overjoyed.
That idea was junked pretty swiftly, and focus was shifted to finding new talent.
I was like the YTS kid. That's a very dated reference as well. I was like a work experience, you know.
Well, this is Simon Mayo. He's Radio 1's latest recruit. Where are you from?
I'm from Nottingham. And I remember Janice Long introducing me.
Shall I do a twirl?
Yes, please. Can we have a 12? This is what he looks like. He's all right,
Expensive
isn't it?
gear, this.
I had to introduce the Pet Shop Boys, but I didn't look at the camera.
OK, now live on Top of the Pops, up 10 places to 21, the Pet Shop Boys.
What an utterly stupid thing to do or to not do. So I said, can I do it again? Absolutely, never do it again.
But the biggest overhaul was to replace the oh-so-familiar Top of the Pops theme tune with a shiny 80s update.
Paul Hardcastle was the man of the moment, and that was the sound of an awful lot of the stuff that we were playing on the radio.
Michael was very astute because he knew what was going on music-wise, and he knew the likes of myself and Peely were really picking up on the dance thing, so I think he wanted to commission something that sounded more of the time.
You might have noticed that the theme tune for Top of the Pops has changed. It's replaced Yellow Pearl, which has featured for 3 years on this show. And this guy is the guy who's responsible for doing it, Paul Hardcastle.
Hello, Janice.
How did it come about?
Last time I was here, actually, doing the Don't Waste My Time thing, Michael Hurl asked me if I could come up with something, so I went home and tried.
So you're commissioned?
Yeah. And I remember phoning up Simon Fuller, who was my manager at the time, and saying to him, I've just been asked to write the new Top of the Pops theme. And he just laughed down the phone at me.
Yeah. Tell us what it's called.
It's called The Wizard, actually, and it'll be out maybe in about 3 months' time.
So there's a chance that people can actually buy it as a single?
Yeah, definitely. I did the Top of the Pops theme in 3 days. Radio 1 wouldn't play the Top of the Pops theme. Michael Hurl actually got onto Radio 1 and said, do you know what, if you don't play my record, then don't send your DJs to my show. He went ballistic. And I love the way he called it my record. They're not going to play my record? Right. I mean, that's how powerful he was at the time.
Michael Hurl defied the radio ban by playing The Wizard constantly to millions of viewers.
Well, this next item is actually the theme that you hear at the beginning of the show and in the middle of the show. Now available as a single. Here's Paul Hardcastle, theme from Top of the Pops, The Wizard.
When the record was released, it rocketed up the charts.
Michael said, I'll show you, I'll get the bloody record in the chart. And he did on his own, without no radio play. He basically showed the world how big Top of the Pops really was.
Top of the Pops' status as a worldwide player was proved by its pulling power as American acts flew in to perform.
86. You've got the British record industry losing the way, so there's a void. Right, there's a void, because we couldn't fill that void, it's impossible. The American R&B stuff comes in on the back of it. Then everybody wanted American records. And we're trying to compete with American acts. It was embarrassing.
When these star names couldn't or wouldn't make it to the studio, Hurl found he could rely on videos to deliver the American megastars into our front rooms.
This is the age of the video. People are a bit bored with live music, you know, people singing out of tune over tinny guitars. So when they say, and now it's Madonna with Papa Don't Preach, you don't want to see her stood in the middle of a stage with a microphone with the curly bit hanging off the end. You want to see the video, because the video at this point is part of the package.
People like Madonna, they'd be revealing these new looks, and suddenly video introduced us to a whole new way of communicating music. Forget about album budgets, it was all about the video budget.
Videos were de rigueur, and the Brits relished the creative challenge, taking the art form to the next level.
This week, up 18 places to number 16 for Robert Palmer, but forget about him, just have a look at these girls. Addicted to Love.
And for Robert Palmer, created an iconic association with high-concept visuals and an all-model band.
I'm Julia Bolino and I played lead guitar.
I'm Julie Pankhurst and I played the keyboards.
Hi, I'm Matt Gilchrist and I played the bass. We weren't really that sure if music videos were a cool thing to do because they were so new. We had a discussion about it on the phone about whether I should do this video and I said, well, it is Terence.
Terence Donovan, legendary fashion photographer, was brought in to direct, style and amp up the couture credentials.
The whole concept was Donovan's. The stylised fashion meets music.
It was a very simple brief. You are to be like shop window mannequins. Imagine the glass in between you and the rest of the world. They can look, but they cannot touch. You are not available. You are with Mr. Palmer.
Expressionless.
I felt I owned that role.
Yeah.
Not that I was being sold as some passive.
No, we weren't passive. We were terrified.
That wasn't Donovan's. That wasn't his. He didn't want that either.
No.
He wanted strong, bold, confident women. So we thought we embodied that.
In those days, the Musicians' Union, if you were on camera miming, you weren't a Musicians' Union member, you had to employ that musician to be in the room. So behind camera was an entire band.
Female. I did feel a bit uncomfortable. Clunkily playing this lead guitar with this woman looking at me thinking, oh my God, she's butchering that.
While the video provided make-up inspiration for generations, it also polarised opinion.
John Peel and I were both incredibly cross about the video to Addicted to Love. It was just cloning women. It was horrible. It really, really was. And when we were sitting there, you know, in rehearsals, I just said, dickhead in love. And Peel went, you can't say that. You'll get into trouble if you say that. I'll say it.
That's a dickhead in love, Robert Palmer. And how nice to see that he's turned his back on all of that sexist muck.
Never had a bad reaction from a woman about it. Ever. No, in fact, oh my God, I loved the way you guys looked in that video. It was amazing. It's so inspiring. You're so strong. I never had, you know, oh, you did that? Why would you do that? That was horrible. Never was that said. Ever, ever, ever.
Stock market will be a car park in 5 years' time. I'll have made a fortune, and that's what I want.
Thatcherism reached its pinnacle, and the deregulation of the money markets made some people a lot of cash.
A time bomb known as Big Bang is about to explode.
While more than 3 million others were on the dole. There seemed to be little opposition. Labour looked lost. The resistance came from 4 cheerful chappies from Hull.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
We're the Housemartins.
My lyrics had been sort of vague social comment without really having any manifesto. But in the beginning of '86, it became more and more obvious that I had a sort of statement to make. We all had skinhead haircuts. Our politics were over the left, even though we looked like a bunch of Nazis. Joking.
They were comedy Marxists. This kind of thing had never been seen in pop music before or heard. They were subversives. They were actually taking the jolliest and most beautiful sounds that they could muster, and within these songs was really heartfelt, really meaningful, and very, very smart political messaging.
We released Sheep. I actually remember where we were when we first heard it on radio. We were in Edinburgh and we were supporting Billy Bragg, and we'd got there too early and we were all tired in a cafe, and it come on in the cafe. It was like, what? And Norman, bless him, he wouldn't do this now because he's too cool, went running up to the counter, oh, this is us, like that. Like, turn it up, and these 2 wee Edinburgh women were just like, what? And turned it up for like about 5 seconds. Yeah, because they'd recognise us, and then turned it back down, and we just sat there with his sandwiches. Been on the radio.
Sheep climbed to 56, missing out on the top 40, but it was a song written earlier in the year that would take them to Top of the Pops.
So we were beginning the year with the realisation we had to get an album together. But looking at my diary, on the 22nd of January 1986, it says songwriting, and it said it's happy hour again.
When the Housemartins had started out, Paul Heaton was unemployed. Ironically, Happy Hour was inspired by a job he had held down in the beautiful South.
Happy Hour was sort of written about me working in an office. Really, I was a kid in Bort Ledger who sort of made tea. Well, there was a tea machine. I went and got the tea, shall I say. And it's sort of about predatory men in the office. And you say, yeah, we're all going down the hatch. Like, there's this pub in Red Hill called The Hatch. I was down in Surrey at the time. And so I used to go to the George and Dragon by myself and drink pints of bitter. I'm not going with those bastards. And they'd all be going, yeah, I've been talking to so-and-so in sales. She's a really nice girl, and all that bullshit. You know?
What a good place to be. Don't believe it.
So it was sort of about that office atmosphere and bit of sort of how I thought the men were looking at the women in the office. We released this song and everybody in the studio saying, that sounds like a hit. I was like, oh, that'll be good, won't it? And it just crashed, as we did, into the charts.
What a good place to be.
I'm just looking here. Friday the 13th, unlucky for some, we were number 15 and going up in the midweek. The phone call would have come, and it was to go on Top of the Pops.
Here in the studio at number 3 with Happy Hour, it is the Housemartins.
I've got a vague recollection of scarves, you know, being waved. So they'd set it up, the BBC, like a mini concert, which felt very good. People saw Top of the Pops within the industry as this will make your record go up in the charts. But we saw it as just a chance to show off in front of our mates, you know, like, and go straight home and say, you're not going to believe who's on Top of the Pops on Thursday. Me.
The summer of '86 was typical for Britain. A stampede abroad to escape the weather. And the traditional novelty hit to swing your pants to. The time-honoured custom was for black lace to provide the song, from the unforgettable to the unforgivable. But 1986 broke with convention.
You know, Spitting Image portray me as someone who is out of touch, someone who has no humanity. Well, the truth is, I care. I care a great deal. I care, and don't you ever forget it!
Sunday night Spitting Image was one of those moments that was the talking point when you got to work on Monday.
When I think of Spitting Image, I always think of puppets with mobile phones and red braces. It's a bloated era. Those puppets really fit in that world because that's what politicians and people looked like.
With sketches that skewered politicians and public figures, as well as the behaviour of the great British public, Spitting Image's songs were an important element for the team to bring to screen.
So we had really, really good singers singing on Spitting Image.
And you.
Me.
Yeah.
And Phil quite often needed somebody who couldn't sing quite so well.
Bit of character.
That was how they described it. Now, this part, we need someone with a bit of character in their voice. In other words, somebody who was shit. Kate Robbins sang the female part on it.
Yeah.
And then Phil joined in, and then we all, basically all the singers got together. I think they'd all gone home by then, actually. I think it was just you, me and Kate.
No, they wanted to go home, yeah.
Yeah, they'd all gone home.
Had their cake and eaten it. They'd become the thing they'd satirised, but they'd also overcome the thing they'd satirised. It's a work of genius. It's also vile.
We never got to do Top of the Pops, though, did we, Phil?
No.
With the chickens. No. A supergroup was hastily assembled for the Top of the Pops studio, with President Ronald Reagan on drums and Mrs. Thatcher on keyboard.
Yeah, when those two wet gits with their girly curly hair.
Now officially pop stars, the voiceover artists needed a proper pop star contract.
Kate Robbins rang me and she said, what are you going to sign? And I said, well, you just sign it, don't you? She said, no, there's an option. You can either sign it and get 400% of your original fee as a payoff, you know, so you get that money, or you can take a percentage. She said, you'd be a mug to do that. So I said, well, I don't know. I think it's quite funny. I think, I said, no, I'm going to take the percentage. She went, well, you're a mug.
A teeny percentage, and how many copies did it sell?
In this country, about 500,000. And...
Sorry.
Cover songs were everywhere this year. The point was to keep the nostalgia with a twist of 86.
The problem was nobody was writing songs. And so all these records were covers. So the record industry went down that route of if it's not a cover, it wouldn't be a hit. So they had to be covers. If it wasn't in a movie, they wouldn't be. It's had to be in a movie. So you got movies that covers in it. Nonsense.
Of course, it was a cover version by Stock Aitken and Mr. Waterman that gave Bananarama their signature tune.
We just had another one with Spin Me Round, which they adored. They came to us for that sound. Now, I didn't realise that they'd come to us only because we'd produced Spin Me Round. I thought they'd come to us because we were great record producers and songwriters. Silly me. They wanted us to do Venus by Shocking Blue, which we thought was the worst idea we'd ever heard of in our life. We'd go, we'll write you one. And then, no, I wanted it. And we literally couldn't see it. The original is a rock and roll record. Dun, 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 dun. It wasn't a high energy record, which is what we've made with Spin Me Round. Dum, bum, 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 bum. Shocking Blue is a completely different rhythmical element. And so when we finished the record and we played it to them, the girls went, well, don't sound like Spin Me Round. And we went, it's not supposed to, it's Venus. They went, well, we only came to you for Spin Me Round. So we sent them down a pub, bought them a bottle of vodka, and got stuck in. And by midnight, when they came back, it sounded like Spin Me Round.
Yeah, that sounds fun now.
When it went bum, 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 all the way across the world to #1.
The Nanas cover of Venus reinvented the trio and became an 80s anthem, the peak of high-energy production and the synthesised sound synonymous with the decade.
I never really fitted in with the 80s. I remember the 80s as being like kind of sort of day-glow pink and really bright colours and padded shoulder pads and this kind of drum machine beat that we got this sort of sound, a disco drum beat, and it was not my thing at all. But we realised that there was almost like a subculture of people out there that didn't want that either, and I think that's what early Simply Red tapped into.
This was the year that Michael Hurl wanted to do things in real time, so you'd turn it on and it would actually be live, and he also wanted live performances.
I think from a technical point of view, it was a bit of a headache because it was unusual. I'm not very good at lip syncing, so people would be able to tell if I was singing to a backing track. So I always wanted to sing live, and it also, part of the reason why we wanted to do it was because we felt very real. I'll keep holding on. The experience of performing on Top of the Pops was an incredible thrill. But, you know, we'd been quite kind of emotionally scarred. But, you know, 4 years of being on the dole makes you kind of feel like a nobody, you know, you're nothing. And the only way that developed my self-esteem was through sheer love of music that I've always had, and it just kept me believing that You know, one day something would happen and we would achieve some sort of success.
Success was reflected by an appearance on Top of the Pops in itself. Every act invited to appear had to have a single on the way up the chart. That was the unbreakable rule. But being a star on the show didn't mean a champagne showbiz reception.
Welcome to Studio 6 of Television Centre and this week's Top of the Pops.
People never see the back side of it, you know. They're kind of waiting in these dingy dressing rooms downstairs. In those times, they were really sort of damp and dingy and all these pipes everywhere and stuff, and you would wait for hours.
I found it very intense. It was a very intense thing because once you got in there, they never really liked you to leave. Everything was precise, timed.
It was get there at 8 o'clock, stay in this room, you know, all day.
It was really boring in the back there. There's no excitement really, unless you were into alcohol and you went up to the bar and got smashed or something like that.
We worked out you could climb out the fire escape and up here and over there, and we got in the bar. And the bar was incredibly cheap. And they used to go, do you want makeup? You know, we never want makeup, don't want makeup. And one day I thought, you know what, I'll go and get some makeup. You know. So I got out there and I said, can you make me look as young as Cliff Richards? And I looked round, who's in the next chair? He wasn't Sir Cliff then, I don't think. He was. You could just go Cliff.
You very much like a kind of a part of a production line.
Let's have some applause going. Go on, hands.
They had people in the audience that were sort of telling them what to do. I don't know if I'm supposed to tell them.
Oh, you are a happy lot. I'm glad I came now.
I used to be a cheerleader on Top of the Pops, you know, just one of the people that stands around the audience. Some of those were people who got tickets. Some of us were planted there by the show to kind of nice up the place and be smiley and happy. I do think I used to say, oh, you know, I'll be doing Top of the Pops one day, and people used to be like, oh, God, you know, who does she think she is?
Striving to realise her dream, Sinitta teamed up with an unknown but enterprising music mogul in the making, one Simon Cowell.
When I met Simon, I'd already made a demo of So Macho, and he got it. And you know, we were like, really? Because everybody else tried to talk me out of it. He knew that if he took that track into any gay club and put it on, that the place would explode and the dance floor would be full. What we didn't expect was that then we'd get such a huge reaction that people started to then try to buy the record. And he had a new problem on his hands, like, how do I print 1 million records? Because we've got to try and meet, people want to buy it, they don't want to just dance to it. The record itself was flying, so it warranted us being invited on Top of the Pops. It was just bizarre, your first Top of the Pops, to be there as an artist when you've been there as a cheerleader, to have my own dressing room, and then finally there's this big rush to get ready and you go and do the show.
Don't want no 7-stone weakling or a boy who thinks he's a girl. I'm after a hunk of a guy, an experienced man of the world.
But all my friends are kind of like in the audience, the cheerleaders. A few of them not so happy.
So macho, he's gotta be so macho. He's gotta be big and strong, enough to turn me on.
Came off stage and actually burst into tears because it was such a big build-up. I knew all the floor men and the directors because I'd been a cheerleader there. So I crossed over, you know, and I was a bona fide pop star. Just crazy.
Never seen you looking so lovely as you did tonight.
So my first time performing on Top of the Pops, I'm at number 2, and Krista Berg is at number 1 with The Lady in Red.
Lady in red.
Next week, instead of me coming back and being number 1, I was still number 2, and Krista Berg was still number 1.
Never seen you looking so gorgeous as you did tonight.
And the week after,
For the 4th week running at number 1, it's Krista Berg.
the guy would not leave the number 1 slot.
Where you look tonight.
We're selling tons and tons and tons of records, like I can't get this guy off the top slot. So then Krista Berg finally drops, and it's like, oh, you know, this is it. And it's like, literally, we're getting to the finish line. Boris Gardner, I Want to Wake Up With You. Another old man with another ballad.
I wanna wake up with you.
And is #1 for another 3 weeks. And I'm stuck at #2.
The high-energy dance beat was a mainstay of the gay club scene. And in '86, the refuge of the dance floor was ever more important.
Today, we start our campaign for anybody worried about AIDS. So if you want advice and information, play safe.
Around 1985-86, we first became aware that this thing that had been reported as a kind of gay plague on the east coast and west coast of America, all of a sudden people in London started getting mysteriously, catastrophically ill. Just rampaged through people, and that was devastating.
The message to everyone this year was don't die of ignorance.
And at the same time, if anything, sharpened the hostility that maybe, and the antipathy that lots of people felt. I can remember there was a leader comment in the Daily Telegraph, and it said, the problem with AIDS is that it's not confined to homosexuals. And that told you what you needed to know, really. I think dance music was a sort of antidote to the kind of cultural effects of HIV, which was making life very dark for some people.
Dance music was the Communards' passion and mission, and this year they found an extraordinary new dynamic, collaborating with chanteuse Sarah Jane Morris.
I introduced Sarah to Jimmy, and they immediately kind of hit it off personally and musically.
There was this very petite, red-headed man with a very high voice, and I was this tall, red-headed woman with an incredibly low voice, and we found that very amusing. We were playing around with the idea, and we said we must do something together. It was Jimmy's decision to do Don't Leave Me This Way, because it had been one of his all-time favourites.
Mix!
Suma! That summer, it was Top of the Pops who revealed the new-look Communards.
We had these two exceptionally gifted singers doing the other person's job, in a way. And that sounded great, but also it looked great, because we were always conscious that there were kind of certain roles that people associated with certain genders.
It wasn't androgyny, it was a new kind of mixing things up. And the world was ready for it.
Not quite all the world.
One newspaper suggested that Jimmy would only have duetted with a drag artist, and because I had size 8 shoes and a low voice, they suggested that I was a man.
God knows what they thought Jimmy was then, but he was evidently gay. That would never do either. The media are the ones who would have a problem with it and create negative headlines just because they could, because it was just very, very easy.
The kids didn't care. This was the biggest selling single of the year and broke down those media-made barriers with music.
Because we were #1 for 6 weeks, we had to do it quite a few times. And the first time from Venice, they flew us in a private jet. And we had to go and do Roland Rat in the afternoon. The Cunards! Yeah! And Top of the Pops in the evening.
We were on once and we were pretty tired, and Jimmy and Sarah Jane swapped vocals.
And you can see the camera frantically scrambling to get out the building, never mind to cut to a different shot.
Zoom out!
And they were furious. They went absolutely mental, because of course you have to preserve the illusion that this is real, which it isn't. And I can remember, I think it was Michael Hurl, who was the executive producer then, having a very terse conversation.
They've got a real good talking to for that. It didn't go down well, but we loved it.
We were told that if we hadn't been at #1, it would have been pulled and we would never have been on again.
What were they going to do? I mean, we were #1. I suppose they could have played the video, but that worked for us too.
Dance music here was starting to build bridges, but in America it was developing into a sound that would change the world.
And we go back to number 16 in the charts, featuring the amazing voice of Mr. Daryl Pandy. This is Farley, Jack Master Funk. Love Can't Turn Around.
A new sound was coming from the Chicago clubs, and Top of the Pops hosted the act that launched house in the UK.
It's easy to say in retrospect that it was clearly the start of something. But I think it was the start of something.
Now this is how it started. My dreams are broken hearted, yet I won't give, baby.
It was the beats, it was the voice, it was the grooves. It made it so much different from what was happening here. It was a totally different sound that everybody was talking about and getting really, really excited about.
Amazing voice.
He once told me that he loved being prodded by forks.
But the mainstream weren't concerned with that sort of house. The millionth council house was bought under right to buy.
Their exclusive housewarming gift was a bottle of Prime Minister's Special Reserve whiskey.
House prices soared, as did homelessness. And a thriving art scene was growing under the radar.
It was a very strange time, but an incredibly creative time. Everyone was squatting, nobody could afford to live anywhere. Tough times. Not too dissimilar to now.
There were shoots of recovery in British pop, and one band broke out, the retro-cool Swing Out Sister.
I wrote a song in my bedroom in a squat in North London, but it was a bit noisy because I was playing the music back on a cassette machine, singing into a recording Walkman. We had to have this demo ready for 10 o'clock the next morning. My flatmate came storming up at about 2 in the morning going, "Can you shut up? I've got to get up for work the next time." Okay. So I lay in bed, singing over and over in my mind the song, which in my mind, the way I remembered it was kind of Thriller backwards. Or a chicken. The rhythm was kind of like a chicken. That, yeah, I had to sing these things over in my head and try and remember the words and think, as soon as she gets up at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'll continue with the recording, which I did. And then the bike turns up at 10 o'clock. I just had to give them what I had. And they went, yes.
Don't stop to ask. Now you found a break to make it last. You've got to find a way to say what you want to say. Break out.
This new easy listening sound was entirely fresh. And singer Corinne's thrift shop chic now came in handy.
When we were asked to be on Top of the Pops, I didn't have enough money to buy any clothes, but our record company said, "Oh, it's okay, we'll give you an advance to get something to wear for Top of the Pops." But all I could think was I needed to buy some new gas bottles for my Calagas seat. I did buy a jacket by a designer called Joe Casey Hayford. You know, that was probably the most expensive thing I'd ever bought, but then I didn't have any money left for anything else. So I had a t-shirt on that was my mum's, and I can remember I was wearing some curtain rings that I got from my mum's curtains that looked like bangles, and a piece of remnant fabric I tied like a sarong, and then I just had my Doc Martens and socks on.
You've got to find a way to say what you want to say. Break out.
It was like a dream come true. I'd spent my whole life wanting to be on Top of the Pops. It's all I needed to do. I think actually after that day it was downhill all the way, because I just thought that's all I wanted to do it for, to be on Top of the Pops.
It's Roger and Des at number 17 with the Skyboat Song.
In a year characterised by novelty and cynicism, the chance to cash in on Christmas inevitably produced a mixed bag of musical offerings.
Speed, bonny boat, like a bird on the wing.
But it was our cheerful chappies a cappella version of Jasper Eiley's Caravan of Love that captured the public's imagination.
Stand up, stand up, stand up, I'm your brother.
On the day that I worked out Caravan of Love, we worked it out, the song I was listening to that day, is this one, Reed Petite by Jackie Wilson. That came back to bite me, didn't it?
She's my sister. She's my sister, don't you know?
But that song quickly became associated with everybody with Christmas. It was a message of hope, and Caravan of Love fitted perfectly into that.
It's time to stand up and fight.
We played a show called The Tube. They'd had this chalkboard out of the favourites for number one for Christmas, Christmas number one.
And it's a race. And I've got 2 Housemartins here because, Stanley and Norman, because their record is the favourite. It's currently 6-4, which means you could not win that much if you bet on them.
And then it goes up to number 23 on the 2nd of December. And it carried on rising. As we can see from the diary, which is fact, by the way, Caravan of Love midweek on the Tuesday was number 1.
Are you ready?
I was told on the Sunday morning, the 21st, after the shops closed on the 20th, that it was number 1, and it was official that it got to number 1. And so we celebrated.
All right, it's Reed Petite because this is the Christmas number 1 from Jackie Wilson.
But on the Christmas Day edition of Top of the Pops, Jackie Wilson's Reed Petite was revealed to be the official number 1.
I actually ran into a little bit of trouble with the BBC over something I'd said live on air about Thatcher and Dennis Thatcher. So we always sort of put it down to that.
Stand up, stand up, stand up.
Conspiracy theorists declared that the Housemartins had been nobbled for subtly shifting a gospel ballad to a lefty rallying cry.
Stand up, I'm your brother.
I should say, on a more positive note, I got a pub that I used on Grafton Street called the Grafton, and we went back in there for the pensioners' party, something which was organised for the pensioners, free food, free beer, etc. And we walked in and we got a standing ovation. They were so proud of us that everybody stood up and cheered us, and it was a really, really moving moment. It felt like a number 1 to a whole people.
Paul, I think you should give a speech.
Well, cheers. So it didn't really matter, the actual chart rundown is we were number 1.
You better get ready for it. You better get ready for it.
The dance revolution would gather speed in 1987, but the high street belonged to the music industry outsiders and their stable of boys and girls next door.